5:12 a.m. local time. Strait of Hormuz. The water on the surface looks completely still. From the flight deck of a U.S. aircraft carrier, the sea seems almost serene. The first light of morning spreads across the narrow strait, giving the water a pale silver glow. Tankers move slowly along distant shipping lanes. Fighter jets remain secured to the deck. Sailors continue their routine watch rotations. Nothing in the scene hints at immediate danger, but 200 feet below the carrier, in the dark, cold layers of the Gulf, something is moving. Inside the Combat Information Center, the steady rhythm of routine operations suddenly changes. A sonar operator pauses. On his screen, a faint acoustic signature flickers across the passive sonar feed. It is not loud or dramatic, just a slow mechanical pulse hidden beneath the ocean's background noise. He leans in. "Possible subsurface contact," he says calmly. There is no alarm in his voice, no sudden movement, but everyone in the room looks up. The signal stabilizes. Bearing 147, range 19 nautical miles. The acoustic profile is weak, yet the pattern is familiar. Diesel-electric propulsion, a submarine. The contact is moving slowly, barely 2 knots, almost drifting through the thermocline, the layer where warm and cold water bend sonar waves and create the perfect place to disappear. The operator marks the track. 5 seconds later, another tone appears. A second acoustic trace enters the system from a different direction, bearing 161. Range 21 miles, another submarine signature. The room grows quieter, the tactical display refreshes. 2 underwater contacts now move across the digital chart beneath the carrier strike group. Different bearings, different acoustic fingerprints, 2 separate submarines. For a brief moment, no one speaks. Then the sonar console flashes again. A third signal rises out of the background noise, fainter than the others but steady. Bearing 132, range 23 miles. 3 contacts, 3 submarines. All moving slowly, all moving toward the same target, the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer studies the tactical map without changing his expression. "Track them," he says. No raised voice, no abrupt commands, just quiet authority. Above, the aircraft carrier continues on its steady course through the Strait of Hormuz, cutting a wide white wake through the narrow shipping corridor between Iran and Oman. The ship displaces nearly 100,000 tons and moves like a floating city. But below the waterline, it has one unavoidable weakness. It cannot disappear. The Combat Information Center pushes the data into the strike group's network. Within seconds, every escort ship sees the same picture. Destroyers, cruisers, helicopters. The entire carrier strike group is now watching 3 small icons move slowly across the digital seascape. 3 submarines approaching in a loose triangular pattern. The geometry is not accidental. Submarine crews train for this kind of approach. A 3-point formation creates pressure from multiple angles, making it much harder for a large surface ship to respond. The pattern develops gradually but clearly. 3 silent hunters moving into position. 5:17, 200 miles away. High above the Persian Gulf, a maritime patrol aircraft banks slightly east. A P-8 Poseidon. The aircraft carries one of the most advanced anti-submarine systems in service. Inside its mission bay, technicians begin dropping sonobuoys into the sea below. Small cylinders strike the water and deploy underwater microphones. Passive buoys, active buoys. Within minutes, they form a listening grid across 60 square miles of ocean. Each buoy listens. Each buoy reports. Then one of them picks up something, a faint propeller rhythm moving beneath the thermal layer. The signal is sent instantly by satellite link back to the carrier strike group. Confirmation, subsurface contact. Then another buoy triggers, second confirmation. Moments later, a third buoy lights up the network. 3 separate underwater signatures. The tactical display aboard the carrier updates again. 3 red tracks are now moving steadily closer. Range shrinking, 19 miles, 17. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar operator adjusts his headset and watches the acoustic waveforms rise slowly across the screen. The sound is clearer now, low-frequency propulsion, Iranian diesel-electric class. There is no uncertainty anymore. These submarines are not simply passing through, they are closing. At this speed, they will need less than 40 minutes to reach engagement range. There is no alarm tone, no siren echoing through the carrier. But every station in the strike group understands exactly what this means. 3 submarines, 1 carrier, and the silent phase of the encounter has begun. 5:29. The Strait of Hormuz is starting to come alive. Cargo ships push slowly through the narrow lanes. Oil tankers drift across the horizon. The morning sun rises higher above the Persian Gulf, throwing long reflections across the water. From the outside, the U.S. carrier strike group looks exactly as expected. A massive carrier moving through the sea at steady speed. 2 guided missile destroyers several miles ahead. Another escort trailing behind. Helicopters parked quietly on the flight deck. Routine, professional, predictable. But below the surface, the ocean is becoming crowded. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar picture sharpens with every passing minute. The 3 submarine contacts have not changed course. They are still closing. Slow, careful, deliberate. At 2 knots. At that speed, a submarine barely disturbs the water around it. Its acoustic signature is little more than a whisper. But whispers travel a long way underwater. And the strike group is now listening very carefully. The sonar operator tracks the first contact, range 14 nautical miles. The submarine remains deep below the thermocline, where temperature layers bend sonar waves and create pockets of acoustic shadow. An ideal place to stay hidden, but no hiding place stays perfect forever. Another update appears on the tactical display. The second submarine shifts its bearing slightly, just a few degrees. Small enough that most civilian ships would never notice. But inside the carrier's tactical system, the shape is obvious. The 3 submarines are spreading apart, widening the triangle. The watch officer studies the pattern. He does not need to say it aloud. Everyone in the room already understands. They are maneuvering into attack positions. A carrier strike group is one of the most heavily protected formations on Earth. Surface radar, air patrols, electronic warfare. But threats from below are different. They come from a place where visibility disappears and reaction time shrinks. Below the surface, the rules change. 531. One of the escorting destroyers activates its hull-mounted sonar. A sharp metallic pulse cuts into the ocean. Ping. The sound moves through the water like a shockwave. Inside the Combat Information Center, the acoustic display fills with echoes as the pulse reflects off the seabed and returns. Ping. Another pulse. Ping. Every submarine in the area hears it instantly. To submariners, the signal is unmistakable. They have been found. Inside one of the Iranian submarines, the captain listens to the echo through his headset. American active sonar. He knows exactly what it means. The carrier group is searching, but he knows something else as well. They are already close, very close. He checks the range again, 9 nautical miles. Inside the submarine, the crew moves quietly through the narrow control room. No shouting, no rushing, only measured preparation because this is the exact scenario they trained for. Above the surface, the carrier strike group begins to shift its posture. The destroyers spread a little wider, not enough to alarm nearby civilian traffic, just enough to tighten the defensive screen around the carrier. On the flight deck, a helicopter crew runs toward a waiting MH-60R Seahawk. The aircraft is already fueled, already armed. The Seahawk is one of the Navy's primary submarine hunting helicopters. Beneath its fuselage hangs a dipping sonar system capable of searching deep below the surface. Its pylons carry lightweight torpedoes built specifically for underwater targets. Within minutes, the helicopter lifts off the deck. Rotor wash throws spray across the carrier's wake as it accelerates forward. Inside the Seahawk cockpit, the sensor operator watches the digital ocean map refresh in real time. 3 submarine contacts, closing, range 8 miles. At that distance, every mile matters. Heavyweight torpedoes can travel well beyond 20 miles, but at close range they become far more dangerous. Less time to react, less room to maneuver. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical officer studies the numbers. 8 miles. 7. The submarines keep moving forward at the same slow pace. No sudden turns, no abrupt movement, just steady, deliberate pressure closing in beneath the surface. No panic, just a silent advance. And that calm says everything. These crews have not drifted into the strike group by chance. They know exactly where they are headed. 536. The Seahawk helicopter reaches the outer edge of the sonar grid. Below, the sea looks dark and empty, but the sensors tell a different story. The helicopter slows into a hover. Beneath it, the dipping sonar begins descending on a long cable, slipping under the waves. The moment the sonar head enters the water, the system starts listening. A faint mechanical rhythm comes through the speakers. Slow-turning propeller blades. A heavy steel hull moving through deep water. Submarine confirmed. The sensor operator marks the contact, one of the 3. But the other 2 are still out there, still moving in. Inside the Combat Information Center, the range drops again. 6 nautical miles. At that distance, every officer in the room understands what it means. The submarines are now inside effective torpedo range. Somewhere beneath the dark water of the Strait of Hormuz, 3 Iranian submarines are nearly in position to launch. 541. Inside the Combat Information Center, the mood changes in an instant. A sharp acoustic spike flashes across the sonar console. The operator leans forward. For a split second, the sound almost blends into the background. Then it becomes unmistakable. A high-frequency cavitation signature. Propeller blades spinning far faster than before. Not a submarine. Something smaller. Something moving fast. The operator reacts immediately. "Torpedo in the water!" The words slice through the room. Every eye turns to the tactical display. A new contact appears. Speed, 50 knots. Bearing, directly toward the carrier. The computer builds the track instantly. Heavyweight torpedo. Then it happens again. Another acoustic burst, a second launch, and seconds later, a third. 3 separate propulsion signatures ignite beneath the sea. 3 torpedoes now racing forward at combat speed. 3 underwater weapons converging on the same target, the aircraft carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical system begins projecting intercept lines. 3 red tracks surge across the digital map. Next to them, the countdown appears, 6 minutes to impact. The watch officer never raises his voice. "Carrier maneuvering, up on the bridge!" The order reaches the helm immediately. The massive ship begins to turn. A nuclear-powered carrier weighs nearly 100,000 tons. It cannot pivot like a destroyer, but even a modest change in heading can disrupt a torpedo solution. The rudder shifts. The bow begins a gradual swing to starboard. Below the waterline, the carrier's wake starts to change direction. Even a few degrees can make the difference. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the torpedo tracks keep closing. 5 minutes to impact. Above the surface, the MH-60R Seahawk is already reacting. Through the dipping sonar, the sensor operator hears the launch signatures clearly. 3 distinct propulsion sounds. 3 torpedoes. He marks the vectors quickly. Then something else appears on the display. A larger acoustic signature moving slowly beneath the launch point. Submarine, one of the attackers. The helicopter banks sharply toward the contact. Altitude drops. The pilot steadies the aircraft while the sensor operator locks onto the submarine's position. Target confirmed. No hesitation now. The Seahawk releases a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo. The weapon drops from the helicopter and vanishes into the sea below. Moments later, its motor comes alive and the torpedo begins its own underwater pursuit. Back inside the strike group, the defensive response continues. 4 minutes to impact. The tactical officer gives the next order. Deploy Nixie. At the stern of the carrier, a cable begins unspooling rapidly into the water. At the end of the line, a small device starts broadcasting powerful acoustic noise. The Nixie torpedo decoy. To a torpedo seeker, the decoy sounds bigger than the carrier itself. Louder, closer, more tempting. It trails behind the ship like a moving false target, designed to pull the weapon away. A second decoy follows moments later. Now 2 acoustic ghosts are trailing behind the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical display updates. The first torpedo reacts almost immediately. Its track starts to curve. The seeker locks onto the decoy signal. The weapon turns away from the carrier and accelerates toward the artificial noise. One threat diverted, but the other 2 stay on course. Their guidance remains fixed on the original target. 3 minutes to impact. The carrier continues its evasive turn. The massive hull carves a wider arc through the Strait of Hormuz. Behind it, the decoys stream through the wake like bait. Above the ocean, the Seahawk's torpedo closes on the submarine contact. The weapon switches to active sonar. Ping, ping. Each pulse moves through the water, searching for the steel hull below. Inside the Iranian submarine, the crew hears it instantly, the sound of something hunting them. The submarine begins an emergency descent. Ballast tanks flood. The vessel angles downward, trying to slip beneath the sonar cone. But the Mark 54 is already tracking. Its onboard computer processes every returning echo, adjusting course, narrowing the gap, and closing fast. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the tension keeps rising. 2 torpedoes remain. The distance drops to less than 2 miles. Time to impact, under 2 minutes. Every screen shows the same reality. 2 incoming weapons, 1 aircraft carrier, and almost no time left for the outcome to unfold. 5:47. Beneath the Strait of Hormuz, the ocean erupts with invisible force. Nearly 200 feet below the surface, the Mark 54 torpedo released from the Seahawk locks onto its target. Active sonar pulses cut through the darkness. Ping, ping. Each return comes back clearer. A steel hull. A diesel-electric submarine trying to slip deeper into the acoustic shadows. Inside the submarine, the sound is unmistakable. Something is closing in fast. The captain reacts instantly. Emergency dive. Ballast tanks flood, the submarine angles sharply downward, pushing toward deeper water. At the same time, the crew deploys acoustic countermeasures, small devices designed to imitate the sound of the submarine and confuse the incoming weapon. Bursts of false noise spread through the water, but the Mark 54 is designed for this exact scenario. Its onboard system filters the returns, ignoring distractions and locking onto the real target. Distance closes, 200 meters, 100, then a sudden underwater detonation. A powerful shockwave expands outward, shaking the surrounding water. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine's acoustic signature disappears instantly. No propeller noise, no hull movement, only turbulence remains. One submarine is out, but the situation is far from resolved. Back on the surface, the carrier continues its evasive turn. Inside the Combat Information Center, the display updates. 2 torpedoes remain. Range, 1 mile. Time to impact, less than 90 seconds. The stern cuts hard through the water as the maneuver reaches its limits. Behind the ship, Nixie decoys trail through the wake, broadcasting strong acoustic signals. The first torpedo has already taken the bait. On the display, its track bends away, chasing the artificial signal. But the second torpedo stays locked. It continues straight toward the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, silence fills the room. The numbers tick down. 800 meters, 700, 600. At the same moment, another Seahawk sweeps low across the surface. It has been tracking a second submarine contact detected earlier. Its sensors confirm the target. Another submarine attempting to slip away during the chaos. The pilot banks sharply. Altitude drops. Target acquired. Within seconds, a second Mark 54 torpedo drops into the sea and disappears beneath the surface. Moments later, its engine ignites and it begins its pursuit. Below, the submarine commander hears the sonar pulses. Ping. He understands immediately. Another hunter is closing in. The submarine turns hard, trying to change depth and direction at once. But underwater maneuvering takes time, and torpedoes are built for speed. The Mark 54 surges forward. Its sonar scans the water ahead. Then the echo returns. Steel hull. Lock confirmed. The distance collapses rapidly. Seconds later, a second underwater explosion rips through the water. A column of bubbles races toward the surface. On the Seahawk sensors, the submarine's signature disappears. 2 submarines. 2 detonations, both gone. But inside the Combat Information Center, all attention remains on the final threat. 1 torpedo left. Range, 500 meters. The carrier keeps turning, engines pushing the massive hull forward. Behind it, the decoys trail like lifelines. 400 meters, 300, 200. At this distance, the outcome will be decided in seconds. Every screen shows the same symbol. 1 incoming torpedo, closing fast. The Strait of Hormuz has become a race between steel and sound, and beneath the surface, the final weapon is still tracking. 5:52. The last torpedo is now less than 200 meters away. Inside the Combat Information Center, every display follows the same contact. A single acoustic signature racing through the water at nearly 50 knots. The carrier continues its turn, but a ship this size cannot outrun what is coming. Its only defense now is deception. Behind the vessel, the Nixie decoys cut through the turbulent wake. 2 artificial acoustic sources broadcasting powerful signals, each one louder than the carrier itself, each one designed to pull the threat away at the last possible moment. On the display, the torpedo's path remains steady. Range, 150 meters. No one speaks. The sonar operator watches the waveform climb. The propulsion signature is sharp now. Fast, aggressive, locked. 100 meters. Then, suddenly, the track shifts. Just a few degrees at first. The torpedo begins to drift toward the stronger acoustic signal behind the carrier. The decoy. On the screen, the red track curves away from the ship. The weapon is changing targets. The watch officer keeps his eyes fixed on the display. No reaction yet. No relief, because even now, the outcome is not guaranteed. 70 meters to the decoy, 60, 50. The torpedo accelerates, fully locked onto the artificial signal. Seconds later, a violent underwater explosion. A towering column of water erupts behind the carrier, sending shock waves across the surface. But the ship continues forward, untouched. The decoy has done its job. Inside the Combat Information Center, the incoming track disappears. The final torpedo is gone, but the situation is not completely over. 1 contact remains, the 3rd submarine. While the torpedoes were closing in, it attempted to break away, shifting course north beneath the confusion of sonar pulses and detonations. But it was never lost. High above, the first Seahawk banks sharply toward updated coordinates. The crew already understands the next step. The dipping sonar lowers once more into the sea. Within seconds, the system detects the target, a slow-moving submarine attempting to escape. The pilot steadies the aircraft. Contact confirmed. Another Mark 54 torpedo drops into the water and vanishes below. Moments later, its motor ignites, beginning its search pattern. Below the surface, the submarine crew hears it instantly. Ping, ping. Each pulse grows stronger. The submarine attempts one final maneuver, diving deeper, releasing countermeasures. But the torpedo has already locked on. It accelerates, closing, then a third explosion. A powerful shockwave tears through the water. Moments later, the submarine's acoustic signature disappears from the display. Inside the Seahawk cockpit, the sensor operator confirms it. Contact lost, target neutralized. Back aboard the carrier, the Combat Information Center updates the tactical map. 3 submarine tracks, all gone. 3 detonations recorded beneath the surface. The Strait of Hormuz returns to silence. 5:59. The carrier strike group reforms its original formation. Destroyers tighten the defensive screen. Helicopters circle overhead, scanning for any remaining contacts. But the ocean below is quiet again. No propellers, no torpedoes, no submarines. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer enters the final line into the log. 3 hostile submarines engaged, all threats neutralized. The aircraft carrier continues its course through the narrow waters of the Strait. From the flight deck above, the sea once again looks calm. Cargo ships move steadily along their routes. The horizon remains clear. Nothing in the morning light reveals what just happened below the surface. But everyone inside the strike group knows. 3 submarines approached. 3 torpedoes were launched. And in less than 40 minutes, the silent hunt beneath the Strait of Hormuz was over.